Hello, my name is LT or Soul. I want to start trying to rise in my community, trying to get a bigger community. So, in attempt of doing so, I want to try to do like a story time type of video. So, yeah. My first story time is why I stopped working at an ear piercing store. And before you start, like, because you're probably imagining like this cool looking tattoo fucking parlor shop. Not at all. Like, I wish it was like a cool piercing place. No. I actually worked at a store named Icing, which, if you're not familiar with what that is, like what company or whatever, Claire's the like purple cutesy store, where they pierce your ears in front of a fucking window so the whole world can see. It's like a humiliation fucking ritual, but for little kids. Um, I seen the ear piercing store was owned by Claire's, so I worked for Claire's in a sense. But I would not tell people that because it was kind of embarrassing in a way. But anyways, so the whole reason why I even started working at Icing was basically I was looking for a second job at the time so I could finish paying off my car repairment bill because my car, cars break down, all that jazz. So I needed a second job to help me pay off my car, and it was also so I can move out. So, anyways, now that you get the why I started working there, it was also no one was hiring. This economy is fucking terrible, but that's besides the point. Anyways, I had started paroling, like, not paroling, patrolling around the mall. So, as a goth, I wanted to get hired in Hot Topic, but that didn't work. They had said at the time they had just not been hiring. So, tough luck for me, I guess. So, yeah, that didn't go well. But continuing to roam the mall, I ran into the store Icing. And yeah, the rest is history. I got hired, whatever, all that jazz. It was really like a last case scenario type of thing, and they were also desperate for help, so it was like a win-win. I get a job, they get, a manager, win-win-win. But it was not it at all. I don't even know where to start with this fucking pizza puzzle. Let me just start with my first day. So, I originally had to go through 3 interviews just to get hired at this small ass store. And it was the first time I had to go through like 3 interviews. I probably went through like 1 and then got hired, or 1 and told me to hit the fucking road. So, it was 3 was kind of obnoxious, and I even had to like take a test before I got hired and after I got hired, and I'm just like, holy fuck, is the ear piercing industry this fucking important? But I guess so in a way. Anyways, after getting hired, the point of me was I was the opener. I was an opening manager because, okay, this store is about as big as a fucking kitchen. It's small. So it wasn't a hard job. It wasn't difficult. I'm not gonna go into rant about like my job is difficult, because actually it was pretty fucking, I don't know, it's pretty normal really. But anyways, so since the store was basically just so petite and small, I was waking up at 9 in the morning, leaving at like 4, and then I was going to my other job right after. So anyways, my first day working at Icing, the girl who interviewed me, she was also the GM of the store. GM, meaning like general manager. So she ran the store, essentially. So she not only was my boss, but she was also the boss of the building and everybody else. So when I first met her, she was cool. I mean, she interviewed me. She thought I was cool. I wore like goth attire, and I was just like, yeah, I kind of like don't really think this is a store for me because it's kind of like all cutesy. And if you didn't know, mall stores hire you based off of your aesthetic and your appearance. Specifically, if you're going into a store where you're supposed to be repping their aesthetic, such as Hot Topic. As if you ever walk in a Hot Topic, you see people who have like pink hair, blue hair. They have like alt style to them. That is why they specifically hire alt fashion people, because you need to be repping the Hot Topic, aesthetic. If you go into Earthbound, you have to be an earthy girl. Claire's and Icing are one of those stores, but instead of being like, alt, you have to be, well, a cutesy girly girl. So, but my aesthetic was approved, because, like I said, they were desperate for help. It's this small fucking building that had basically nobody in there. So, I basically made the cut. But essentially, my first day being hired there. But anyways, so my first day, I got there like fucking 9 in the morning, as I was hired to do. Get there at 9 in the morning, no huss, no fuss, just get there. So I'm gonna keep my old boss's name obviously secret. I'm gonna call her Amy. We're gonna call her Amy. Anyways, I show up super early because I'm over fucking anxious. It's been a long time since I've had like a first day at a job, because I've been working my other job for like so long. So I'm like, holy, it's been a brick since I've walked into a new workplace, fresh, new meat. You know what I mean? So I'm early as fuck. She says get there at 9:30. I'm out there like 9 on the dot, 8:30, whatever the fuck. But I end up actually having to wait up on her. This is where the first warnings should have hit me. But she's late. Like, my boss, my general manager, she's late. And I don't really mind. I don't really care, you know what I mean? It's, I'm not going to judge you for that. I mean, everybody has their own timing, their own attendance. But anyways, she gets there like 10:30ish. You're like, yeah, she's like really late to like the original time. The only reason why I had a problem with it is because I couldn't clock in without her being there, because you have to open the store, so I couldn't get in. Therefore, I was missing out on money, but I mean, couldn't really control that. But anyways, so we get into the building, and she's like, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. My boyfriend was late to drop me off. And I'm like, oh, no, you're like so fine. Like, it's okay. You're training me. We're on your timing. And the next thing she says to me is, yeah, so he wasn't trying to drive me because I refused to give him morning head. My model's face just got angry and froze. But no, deadass. She says that to me, in my face. And I'm like, okay, like, TMI. Mind you, I don't even know her name at this point. I completely forgot her name from the interview, but I don't even know her name at this point. And I'm like, oh, okay, you feel really comfortable around me to tell me that information. I mean, you don't even know my name. We don't know anything about each other other than I'm new, you're my boss. So that should have really been my first red flag about this job, but I was desperate. But that key information is a huge point of why I actually left. My boss was like she was a huge, I don't want to say like trauma dumper, but she was in a really messed up relationship, and she was an oversharer. I'm just gonna say that. And it's not comfortable to be sharing the worst parts of your relationship to, you're technically one of your managers, or really anybody that's working for you or with you, especially when they are your boss. So, and I understand, like, she's super comfortable, like, immediately. It was just, let me continue, because it does take a bad turn, essentially. I was fine with her telling me her business and all that jazz, but it takes a turn when she herself, her attitude, how she was as a boss, was being inflicted with who she was as her person and as in this toxic, abusive relationship, essentially. But yeah, so she tells me that on my first day, and I'm like, oh, wow, okay, interesting. So she continues to refer to her boyfriend as her husband. I believe they're engaged. She told me they had been engaged for 6 years, and I'm gonna be honest. To me, I was like, that's not happening. But doesn't. That's my opinion. She had been engaged for 6 years. I don't think that ship is I don't think that ship is sailing anytime soon. Especially with everything she had told me about our relationship. Now, I'm not gonna go day to day to know how all of it was. So that was the beginning of this weird relationship with my boss. And also, one thing that was very, I talked about how you have to match a certain aesthetic to basically work in the mall. So in Claire's, it's called like a dress to impress aesthetic, where you have to be cute. You gotta wear something cute. You have to be, dressed to impress. It's in the fucking name. I don't know why I'm trying to explain it, but you also have to wear $250 worth of merchandise from the store. And this was another thing that made me quit, because it's fucking disgusting, and I didn't know stores did that. Now, the dress to impress, like my own clothes, I was perfectly fine. I was the only goth in the store. It was fine. Like, but what disgusted me was we had to pick out $250 worth of product every single day. So that was fucking egregious and fucking, it was painful. Like, it really was. And 250 isn't as easy as you think. It's like, oh, you work in the mall, everything's expensive. We had to do it wasn't the total price, because you could get to the total price, 250, like, really easy. We had to get to I think it was like, I forget what it was called, but I think it was like a merchandise price, where basically that number times that. So it was weird. It was really weird. But the point is, most times you ended up wearing like 20 items on you. Like fucking 5 necklaces, 2 headbands, keychains, all this other shit. And, that's fine. It's fucking tiring at some point. But what disgusted me about that was we would grab merchandise off the counter, off the rack, that customers are supposed to wear, because we're supposed to, customers are going to buy. We're supposed to show off the merchandise. What's fucking gross about this is, at the end of the day, you put it back. Just on the shelf. Like, you don't clean it, you don't wash it, you don't do anything. You just put it back on the shelf where you found it. And it's it's fucking disgusting, because like I said, we were wearing necklaces, we'd wear like fucking armbands, sweat. It's fucking gross. Like, it's disgusting. And we would just put it back. And people would come in the store, buy these items, put them on. So, future shoppers, if you're going to Icing or Claire's, and, you see them wearing, like, cutesy little stuff, just be aware, probably fucking, if not half that store, or all of it, the workers have definitely had it on. And I'm not saying, all the workers were dirty. I definitely wasn't, filthy and unhygienic. But there were many people before me who had those items on, and there's gonna be many people after me who have those items on, is basically what I'm saying. So you're not gonna be the first nor the last person to have those items on unless you buy them. Unless, you know, it came to the earrings and all that, like things that were bought. But anyways, so I just thought that was really fucking gross, and just I just thought it was icky. But yeah, so I was glad to, when I did leave, I was glad I didn't have to do all that anymore, because it was a major pain in the ass to wake up at 9 in the morning and have to dress fucking cutesy all the goddamn time, you know, like, I just want to wear sweats sometimes. I don't want to look, you know, I don't want to just impress, but, you know, it was in my contract, and I knew it, so, fuck, what am I gonna do? It was really wearing the merchandise that was, like, just disgusting. But anyways, moving on. Other than that, just to impress stuff. But let's get on to my fellow employees. So I liked most of my employees, because there was about only like 4 of us that worked there in the store, which that is a key detail to the story. There was only about 4 of us. The main boss and 3 of us, including myself. There was only about 4 to 5 workers in the entire store, because the store was like the size of a fucking kitchen. So, I liked one girl, and I'm gonna keep all their names, you know, redacted, all that. I liked one girl. We were really cool. We were friends. I still talk to her to this day. So yeah, the good ending with her. But my other coworker, it was off, toss, you know, type of thing. But my first weird interaction with her is, okay, so I'm super skinny. I'm the skinny girl. She was on the larger end of the scale. Like, our body types were completely different. She was bigger than me. I was way smaller than her. So, you know, obviously it would dawn on you to not say anything about each other's weight, because I'm so much smaller than you, you're so much bigger than me. It would be awkward if either one of us said anything about each other's weight. Which is what leads us to the first weird interaction we have, which is her mentioning how small I am, or how skinny I am. And it kind of just like, it just throws all the energy. It throws any chances of us being cool right out the window, because I felt like she wanted to, I guess, like, body shame me first before I would think about it. And listen, to everyone out there who is, you know, a bigger weight and all that, I'm not saying you won't think like this, but being a really skinny girl compared to bigger women, I have ran into this problem a lot, where it feels like the bigger girl feels that I might make some joke about them, or I might talk about their weight first, because it feels like an elephant in the room situation. Trust me, I don't care. I've never cared. And weirdly, I've always ran into that, like, situation where my body has been talked about first, because I feel like it's like a who can jump to the first, you know, who can shoot the gun first type of thing. But it should have never started like that. But that's how our interaction started. Was just, I can't exactly remember what she said verbatim. It was like, it didn't offend me either. It was just, like, in my head, I was like, don't do the thing, don't do the thing, don't do the thing. Like, don't mention the one thing. We're both opposites. Like, don't do it. Spare both of us. But it was something about, like, how small my clothes were, and, you know, basically how small I was, type of thing. But yeah, so that was a terrible way to start off our relationship, and it was just really obvious, because also working in that store, some of the girls were, like, following a mean girl trope, so it was just like, eesh, this is gonna be rough. This is gonna be rough. But yeah, that was a fucking terrible interaction. And I just, still to this day, I wondered, like, why did she take that attempt? Mind you, that was my first impression of her. But all's well ends well, I guess. Anyways, so outside of my low staff of people to talk to, I was constantly alone in the store all the time from like 9 in the morning to 4. I was by myself, and you feel like you're going fucking insane. As much as there are a lot of people in the mall, nobody went into icing. We weren't a popular store, which was one of the main reasons why I wanted to get hired there. Was the store wasn't popular, and I wanted a chill job compared to my first job. So no one came the fuck in. And then when they did come in, it was like here and there, here and there. I learned a lot about the mall from just working here, because now I understand why people hassle you for sales more, and when you even just step foot into the fucking door, they're like, hey, you gonna buy something? Because their counter goes up. So a little insider's note in the mall, if you work at the mall, here's a little insider's, if you've never worked at the mall, here's a little insider's view for you. On their registers or their systems, they actually are forced to track how many people come in and out of the store and how many sales they get. So from my experience, I got there at 9 in the morning to 10, so an hour there, nobody would come into the store. So it would be one person, because of me, it'd be 1 out of, 0. And then let's say, you're in the mall. People window shop. People walk in and out, in and out, in and out of the store, look around, and leave. That's just the mall experience. People who work at the mall actually get yelled at and mistreated because of those statuses. And it sucks. I don't know if that's everyone's experience, but that was definitely mine. I didn't really get yelled at, but this goes back to my boss, which is my boss is the huge reason why I left. But yeah, so I didn't know that, like, all my times. Oh, my avatar. I didn't know that all those times going into the mall because I window shop at the mall all the time. I now understand why they hassle you, and everyone who like walks up to you and they're like, hey, how are you today? Just telling you about our sale. They're required to say that. It's in your contract. You have to engage with the customers, or you're not doing your job correctly. And this is, I hate when going to the mall, people do that. But from someone who did work there, I now actually, I have a new perspective, a new understanding, and a better attitude about it, because I understand that is literally your job, and they have to do that. So my understanding definitely, and my perspective definitely changed. But anyways, so yes, there is basically a data collector that is installed into the register or computer or whatever they use, that collects how many people have walked in the store, how many people have bought in things, how many people have bought in the sales that are up in the mall, whole status thing. And for my job specifically, I don't know if every store in the mall does this. Every night we'd have to take a photo of that, post it to the group chat, and our boss would look at it. And because we weren't a popular store, a lot of people window shopped all the time, and she hated that. She hated those status. She would be like, why are there so many people coming in, not buying anything? And we would explain over and over and over again, we are such a small store, girl, what do you expect? Like, nobody wants shit from us, you know what I mean? And even if they do, you know where they go? They go to Claire's. Because people don't know icing is owned by Claire's, which I don't fucking blame them. I didn't know that until I got hired, so like, I don't blame them. So we got yelled at a lot, like, via text. I don't want to say like my boss was verbally abusive, because she wasn't, but she was a really toxic boss. She was an emotional boss, if that makes sense. It was so bad that we would talk to each other about, like, I feel like every time she's on her cycle, and mind you, all of us were female, so you don't have an excuse. She was very hormonal, I'm probably hormonal. I can't say the word, but her hormones. Jesus Christ, let me speak. Her hormones, basically, they very much controlled how she was as a boss. And her relationship, basically, she was one of those people where she was always in a bad mood because she was in this really abusive relationship, and she had no intent of leaving. And since she was always in a bad mood because her life was, pretty exhausting, really, she was a terrible boss to us. And, she had her good days where she's, like, nice here and there, but it didn't make up for her bad days. In in the slightest did it ever. So, yeah, that was just shitty. That was always shitty. I loved when I worked and she never came the fuck in. But every time when we would post the photos at night, it's always, there's no one here in the morning, what's going on? But anyways, another big thing was, since there was only 5 of us that worked there, when she would have a complaint, she would basically pick the person out and bully them. But what was really infuriating about this was she had all of our numbers independently, and basically when she wanted to text us some bullshit, she would text us bullshit independently, and nothing stopped her from doing that. But at the same time, she would purposely not text us saying some rude, just mean, hurtful shit to us. She would blast us on air in the group chat. And though, it's only 5 people, but your coworkers at the end of the day, you're gonna see each other. It was fucking embarrassing. And so instead of, because like I said, she had texted me independently sometimes, just saying some old bullshit, and really some just like a passive aggressive. She was kind of like, I feel like she was trying to guilt trip me a lot because I'm a very apologetic person. Like one time she had texted me like, hey, can you stay later? And she knew I had 2 jobs. She knew I'd get there at 9, leave at 4, because I had to work on my other job at like 5:45 or 6. And she would be like, hey, can you stay till 7? And I was like, no, I can't do that. I have another job. And then she said, oh, well, I'll just figure it out anyways, like I always do. Excuse me. She was just like that. Just very emotionally aggressive, just passive aggressive, and just, you didn't need to say all that, you know what I mean? And at the same time, at the end of the day, it was her fault for this bashing, because she was choosing not to hire more people. She wanted to keep just us 5. And mind you, everybody who worked there was trying to slip out of this grasp by this point. By the point, everybody either was trying to get a second job or was getting ready to quit. But yeah. So back to the group chat thing, when she did have a problem with people, like, hey, why didn't this get done, whatever, you would not hear the fucking end of it. Until she was done with her spiel, you would not hear the end of it. She would basically, and what was fucking irky was, she would say things like, hey, why didn't these things get done? I feel like I'm always doing everything by myself. This was here, And for me, who worked in the morning, 9 to 4, when you say shit like that, you're talking to me. Why didn't I do this? And keep in mind, she would give us a list of, basically a to-do list every day, and your main objective was to get done with the to-do list. And what was just insultful was she would do that to everybody. Hey, why wasn't this done? I'm always doing stuff. Basically, y'all need to pick up your fucking slack. You're all useless. And what angers me is I'm a hard worker. I'm a workaholic. I got in there from 9 to 4. I did my shit. Now, did I take a little, fucking 20-minute break, watch a video? Nobody's in the store? Yes, I did. But out of those hours there, I did my job, and it was irksome. And one day I fucking snapped on her because she had called me out. This was like day 3 of her calling me out. One of the days was, hey, let's look at the work uniform ethic. And I had only been working there for about 1 week when she had first made this message about me. And it was basically, I was wearing a strapless not strapless, a strapless dress with a jacket on top, and she didn't like that it was strapless, and I was like, oh, well, that's why I'm wearing the jacket, and it was just a whole thing. But, yeah. So instead of just texting me independently, like, hey, LT, I know you haven't been working here for that long, or maybe I was working there for, like 3 weeks, like, almost a month. It was, like, maybe, 3 weeks. But anyways, there was nothing stopping her from literally texting me, hey, LT, just want to let you know, you haven't been working here that long, I understand, and da-da-da, you know what I mean? And everybody knew that was about me, so that was awkward because people, what happened? And basically, she had went on, like, a back-to-back complaint streak about me, about something I had done, da-da-da-da. And when I mean back-to-back streak, she was really nitpicking. It wasn't dire. Like, everything she complained about, it was as if it was, like, in a dire situation, but it never really was that deep. Ever. Like, half of my job was grabbing jewelry, unbagging jewelry, scanning jewelry, and putting jewelry on the fucking shelves. That was my job. Was just unbag, scan, put on the shelf. That was it. And just dress cute. And ring people up when they bought things. And give ear piercings, you know what I mean? But that was essentially the gist of my job. Is just scanning jewelry. And that's not fucking hard. Anyone with a pulse can scan jewelry. Our job was not, you didn't need fucking Master Chief to do our job. It was easy breezy. It was easy shit in the world. So it was really fucking annoying when she would be so aggressive and hard on us because, girl, we package jewelry. That's our job. That's our job. And sometimes give ear piercings. You know why I'm saying sometimes? Because most people would go to Claire's, the actual ear piercing store. And you can't really be mad when people go to Claire's because that's kind of their bit. That's their thing. So, yeah. It would always be fucking annoying when she was just, we're not doing this perfectly, this could be better, da, 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 and it's just like, it's never that fucking serious. We work in a jewelry store. So her back-to-back nitpicking had finally pissed me off because the final one that made me, because I felt like she thought she could run over me basically because I was always very apologetic, and since I was new, I wasn't perfect at my job, so I did do tiny mess ups. But because she was so aggressive and hard on me, before I did anything, I would always ask her, hey, should I do this? Da, 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 da. And she would get annoyed that I would ask her. And I was just like, when I don't ask you and I go do something, you don't like the way I do it, so I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to get yelled at or have a passive-aggressive comment be thrown my way because I didn't do it how you wanted it. And also, by the way, she was very much a my way or the highway type of person. And yeah, it's like, I can't read your mind, Amy. I can't. And when I would ask her how she would like things done, she would just look at me like, are you dumb? And I'm like, I mean, I could do it my way, or I could do it your way. And both ways are going to get the job done, but you don't want anything done except only if it's your way. So, yeah. So that was just, it was like constantly walking on eggshells around her. She was just so controlling of everything. And it was outrageous because I work there 9 to 4. If you really think you need to babysit everybody in the store, but then at the same time you barely want to do anything yourself, it's upsetting because I don't know. And a lot of times when I did things my way, she didn't mind them. She'd be like, oh, hey, that's actually really great. But I'm going to change this around just because it's just OCD. And I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's fine, but why can't you ever just tell me how you want things done? Because you give me a whole fucking paragraph of things to do, but you never tell me what you want done specifically. So it was Like, thinking back at this job, it was fucking frustrating and was not worth any time of my day. Anyways, I'm running over like 30 minutes here, so let me try to wrap this up. But because she was so controlling and emotional, let's get on to what she would tell me about her relationship that you should never tell an employee unless you're super close to them to the point where you are friends. But I want to be frank. We were workers. I was her worker bee. She was my boss. I would not have called her a friend, and I'm pretty sure it'd be vice versa. Which I'm not offended by, and she shouldn't be offended by, because I worked for her, you know? It's just that simple. And keep in mind, don't think of this as like an employee telling you these things, because, you know, you can be friends with your employees because you're all in the same boat. This is my boss. My hygiene boss telling me all of this. Do not forget that information for 1 second. She would tell me about her abusive relationship. And basically, they were physically fighting each other, and they were emotionally hurting each other. But mainly the physical stuff it made me uncomfortable to hear. And I'm not new to abusive relationships. I've never been in one, but trust me, I have had my fair share of witnessing a lot of them. I am no newcomer to abusive relationships. Point is, every day she would come in upset, sad, she would cry to me, she would sometimes be happy, she would rather be at work than home, essentially. But she called him her husband was extremely abusive to her. And they were both, you know, she always said like, oh, we fought, you know, but she wasn't winning those fights. I'm just gonna say that now. It may have been labeled fighting, but she wasn't winning those fights. And the biggest moment I remember, I'm gonna save the biggest moment for a few more minutes. The first moment I remember is when my first week of working there, she had came in with a fucking massive bruise on her shoulder, like her arm, her bicep. I can't really. What the fuck is it? Her shoulder, the sideways of her shoulder, and she was wearing a dress, and it was a strap dress, so it was very seeable, and I didn't make any note of the bruise. I didn't make note of the bruise, I just didn't mention it, because it didn't feel like my place, and I didn't want to make anything weird. And then she turns to me, and she's like, hey, is my bruise noticeable? And I'm like, yes it is. Mind you, this bruise is as big as my fucking hand. Like, it's huge. It's fucking huge. And it's purple. It's a whole different color than her skin tone. It's fucking noticeable. Like, what? And she's like, yeah, I got into a fight with my husband, and it's fucking ridiculous. She basically told me she got home that night, and she was playing a board game with her friend, and her husband, not really her husband, but, you know, quotation husband, had came home, and something about the internet had been cut off. It turns out that his son, which no, is not her son, it was his son who had disconnected the Wi-Fi. Basically, he got angry at her, and then he got in a fight with her, and he punched her. He had, like, hit her on her head several times, punched her in the arm, and they had gotten into a scuffle, but it's not really a scuffle when you're the only one that has bruises on you. So, yeah. And a lot of her abusive stories made me uncomfortable, because it was like, not even like, it was watching someone slowly throw their life away and just basically die. Because she was coming in worse and worse every time I saw her, and she was always really mean to me and everybody because of her relationship, and she was bad at keeping her work and relationship separate. And I felt bad for her. It's not like I didn't feel for her, but it was also she kept doing this to herself. She kept running back to it, and she kept letting him hold the power of their relationship. And I know leaving abusive relationships is so much harder than it is, but it's not appropriate to throw all your anger at your employees, because we aren't the ones hurting you. We only ever did try to help you because that's our jobs. And I want to make it be known, none of us were bad at our jobs. There was only 5 of us. None of us were bad at our jobs. Sorry, my dog's banging at the door. But none of us were bad at our jobs. Nobody slacked off all the time. Nobody was just a bad, we did our jobs. Like, we were efficient employees. So I don't want to make it be like, oh, well, y'all were probably so useless. We were pretty normal employees, I'm gonna be honest. None of us went above and beyond, but it's a small store. You don't really need to, you know what I mean? We're not fucking running a restaurant here. But yeah, so it was just rough. And she would just I'm trying to think of other stories she would tell me, like he had banned her from using the vehicle. Because if you remember, I mentioned at the beginning of the story, her husband had drove her to work. He had banned her from using the vehicle because one night they went out partying, and she was like, hey, I can't really remember how the story went, but I remember how it ends. Basically, he wanted to leave, and she didn't, or it was vice versa. It was one of the two. Basically, he ends up like leaving her at the bar all by herself. She's intoxicated. Oh no, I'm sorry. I do remember how it goes. Yes, so she does want to leave, and he doesn't want to leave, and she's like, hey, I'm drunk, I want to go home, and he doesn't want to take her home, so she eventually takes the car, and then she does crash the car. And look, they're both in the wrong in the situation. Shouldn't have drove drunk, but you should always be respectful to your partner. If your partner wants to go home, she's intoxicated, she's done for the night, y'all went through together, y'all should be able to leave together. I'm not saying, don't, bend to her wheel and all that, but just be respectful. I feel like he should have left when she wanted to, because they had been there all night and all that, and she was drunk at that point. She was just like, hey, I want to go home because, I don't feel safe around these people, because they were in a bar, and he didn't want to take her home, which I was just like, well, not a great guy. And then she shouldn't have took the car, and she shouldn't have crashed it. You don't drive drunk, but yeah. And ever since, that always rubbed me wrong, was she was like, yeah, he banned me from the car. She always talked about her relationship as if she was, like, the kid. She was as if she was a kid losing, like, fucking privileges. And it was just really weird. It was weird to see somebody refer to themselves as so in control. Like, it's just awkward, and it's really sad. And I would try to give her my best advice, but it's not really advice, because I'm just like, hey, are you okay? Are you doing alright? Have you left yet? Have you, do you plan on doing that? Because you keep coming in the store really bruised up. And there were other events, but I'm going to wrap this video up and get to the last point. The last portion where I'd already put in my 2 weeks by this point, because I'd gotten up to here with how she was treating me, and really how she was treating everybody. Also, if you remember, like, Claire's was shutting down because bankruptcy, that was the same time I put in my 2 weeks, because I felt like that was my freedom. That was my ticket out of the corporation, because I didn't need to be there anymore. All of us 5 had actually started quitting. I was the first one to quit, and then everybody started quitting after, which I was proud of all of us, because it felt like we were all kids, like, under an abusive parent. But I'm proud of us. We all did get out of that. And I don't want to stretch it. I don't want to call her like a villain, because she wasn't a bad person. She was just in a bad situation and took it out on us. And I don't want to, she wasn't a bad person. She was actually really cool. It was just how she was as a boss and how she treated all of us. I will never, respect that, and I will never understand it because it was just wrong and cruel. But yeah, point is, during my 2 weeks, she had showed up. So the rule was, by the way, this was another reason why, another one of her abusive moments. I need to stop saying abusive, but controlling moments where one of her older employees had forgotten to bring the key downstairs, and therefore I couldn't get into the store, and I have to open the store by 10 o'clock. That was mandatory, or I was going to be terminated. And the key was never brought downstairs, and I was like, hey, I don't know how to get in the store. The key wasn't brought downstairs. And what happened was, the reason why was because Amy was trying to change up the store, and she wanted me as the morning person to start taking the key downstairs because basically her favorite employee had a closing key. So there was basically her favorite employee had the closing key, so it didn't matter. We didn't need the main one when her favorite employee had the key, so who cared, So her favorite employee has her own personal key, so she didn't run down the work key to Claire's. Because every night, the closer was supposed to take the key down to Claire's, so that in the morning, the opener, aka me, goes to Claire's, gets the key, runs back upstairs, opens the store. Amy had given me the task. She was like, which is never the task of the opener, because I open the building. I don't close the building. But she had given me the task to take the key downstairs because her favorite employee, and I'm being really aggressive when I say that because this is basically why I was being threatened to be fired, was basically her favorite employee was given a key, so it was now my responsibility to take down that key. Mind you, I had a lot of responsibilities to do in the morning, so I fucking forgot. I did. But before I left, I had asked that closing employee, like, hey, I know, you have your own personal key, but just in case, I asked her like 2 hours before I had to leave, like, hey, just in case if I do forget, do you think you could do that? You know what I mean? You're so used to doing that anyways. It's like, it only just now stopped being a closing task. Could you just do that? And the next morning, she did not. I did not. And I was trying to explain to Amy on the phone, hey, I don't know how to get in the building. I wasn't used to this being my task. I forgot. I even asked so-and-so to take the key downstairs for me if I forgot. And she rebutted saying things like, well, this is your fault. You don't blame her for this. And that's why I keep phrasing her as like her favorite employee, because she was the only one that didn't get into a spat with each other. I mean, they were the only ones that didn't, get into a spat with each other. Also, their names, Amy is a fake name. Their real names were very similar to each other, so that was also another huge reason. And that was another one of my fucking breaking points, or like that was one of the moments where she was like back to back, like just on my ass. But yeah, she had went on this whole tangent on like saying it's not her fault, it's yours. If you don't get the store open by 10, you're going to be terminated. So keep that rule in mind. That is a major rule that also most people in the mall have to do. If you don't get the store open by 10 in the mall, or some stores, I think there are some stores that have an exception, you will be fired. That is a requirement. So anyways, one day, to finish up my story, finish up my last episode with her, one day she had, I came in, I was checking the paper from yesterday, and she opened the building at 4 in the afternoon. The mall closes at 8, sometimes 6. She had opened at 4 in the afternoon, and she had been on my ass constantly about, you better open the store by 10 or you're fucking fired. So And so I was like, what the fuck happened? And I asked everybody else, I was like, how did she open the store by 10? I mean, how did she open the store by 4? At that point, you should just not open the store. You should just fucking call it quote closed. But she can't do that. She doesn't have the power to do that. That's not in her power. But I was like, you know, if you failed to do that once, by the way, one time, you were automatically terminated. So I figured, oh, because she's our GM, she's our boss, she got away with it, whatever the fuck. But whatever. So I had actually found out the next day, she had called the work phone. And when she called the work phone, it always said her name, so I knew it was her calling. So I'd be like, oh, hey, Amy, you know, da-da-da, like, you know, whatever. But it had an unknown phone number. But, you know, we still had to pick up the phone and be like, hi, this is LT from Icing. Are you calling about any ear piercings today? You know, the spiel. And she was crying on the phone. By this point, I was used to her crying because she was always crying about her relationship. And she always was just saying, like, I'm tired of people trying to just basically ask me to get out of this relationship. They don't understand, you know, I love this guy, how hard it is, you know, bullshit like that. So, you know, I was used to her crying by this point. And she was like, hey, I know you're supposed to leave at 4, but could you stay to 5? I'm going to be really late. And I said, okay, I can stay. Oh, no, I was supposed to leave at 4. She's like, hey, can you stay till 4? And I was like, yeah, I can stay till 4. I normally do anyways. It's no big deal. Like, it's fine. I was like, just get here when you can. You know, I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're okay. And so anyways, so she doesn't come in by 4. And I'm the lead manager in the store, so I can't leave. You know, even if she doesn't show up, I cannot leave because the other worker in the store, they are managers. The other 2 people in the store, or sorry, one was a manager, but she was in training. Yeah, that's what it was. So she was in training, and basically she didn't have a key to the store, so I was the only one that had a key to the store. I couldn't legally leave the key to her, even though, you know, she was a grown-ass woman. I fully believe she could do it, but legally I fucking couldn't. And then the other girl, she was, like, in high school, so she couldn't have the key to the store. So basically I was the lead manager. By 3, she didn't show up. By 4, she didn't show up. And by 5, she didn't show up. I have to be at my other job by 6:30. So I'm panicking at this point because I'm like, hey, you know, girls, I'm talking to about like the other people in the store. I'm like, hey, guys, I don't know what I'm finna do because I cannot be still here. I can't be at this job and sabotage my other job because, you know, our boss is not here. That's not my responsibility. And I've stayed here longer than what she asked. But eventually she does show up at 5:30, and I'm like, I have to fucking leave. I have to skedaddle, because I tried to get food. You know, I had like an hour before I had to go to... No, I was supposed to get off at 3. Yeah, 4 or 5. I had like 2 hours before I'd have to like clock back in. So, you know, I was pretty fucking like... I was upset, but I wasn't surprised, essentially. Because that was such some Amy shit, you know what I mean? And when she had came in the store, her left eye was swollen, like so badly. It looked like she had gotten attacked by bees. It was really puffed, and it was really fucking bad. It was only her left eye, but she had came in, and to remind you of the dress to impress rule, she didn't come in looking cutesy. She came in wearing a sweater, like a Chucky sweater and sweatpants. And that, when she walked in the building, she sped past everybody. I was doing an ear piercing at the time, so I was by the front window doing an ear piercing for a client. My face is frozen. But so I didn't exactly catch, but I did catch what she was wearing. And because that's another, you know, major rule, I did peep that. I was like, oh, she's wearing sweats. You know, can't really do that. You know, it wasn't like against the fucking law, you know, but you have to at least dress kind of cutesy. You know what I mean? Like, they're not banning sweats. It's just, you know, you have to at least kind of be cutesy. But anyways, I noticed that. My other 2 coworkers noticed that, and they were like, what the fuck? And so we're all like wondering why the fuck she's late. Anyways, when she walks back up here, we all notice her face. Sorry, he wants to get in the room so bad. But we noticed the fat ass swole on her face, and what like really just, it didn't petrify me or surprise me or scare me, but I was just really sorry for her, was when she had pulled up her jacket and her chest was caved in. And I'm not being dramatic about that. I'm not trying to like, sorry, being like really explicit, but I mean caved in. I do mean caved, as if it was pushed in. It was really disturbing. And she was telling all of this without us even having to prompt anything. And also, I didn't mention that her supposed, husband was cheating on her throughout this whole time they were together. I kind of figured, y'all would figure that out, or, assume that he was also cheating on her. And she knew the woman. It was just a terrible relationship, a terrible guy, and it was just, all in all, just fucking terrible. But yeah, so seeing her eye, her arms, and her fucking chest being caved in, I was just like, wow. So it turns out the day before, when she had opened at 4, she had gotten arrested because he's a felon, and she had a gun in her car. He was, near a weapon. He can't be near any weapons. She had gotten arrested. They both got arrested. She had gotten her mom, I think, to bail him out, and then he was supposed to bail her out, but he went to go do the deed with that lady he was cheating on Amy with. And mind you, these two are engaged, so yeah, terrible man, terrible guy. She was also, she wasn't perfect either. But yeah, so, and then, he does, I think she gets her mom to bail her out, and then they get into a fight because he blames her for having the gun in the car, and, he doesn't have a fucking reason to, no one ever has a reason to put their hands on their significant others, so I'm not gonna be like, oh, his reasoning, but basically they get into a fight about the fucking gun. And yeah, so she comes in really beat the fuck up, just bad. It's just bad. And she's like, yeah, I haven't slept at all. I'm tired. I just got out of jail. All the shit. And I'm just like, for the final time, leave him. Because you are not only being cheated on, but you have raised his kid that isn't yours. You are doing way more than what you should be doing for this man. And, you can just go ahead and take a guess and be like, oh, well, is he at least employed? No. He actually, last time I heard, when I was working there, he got hired by his baby mama's family. And so, to take a guess where that was going. So, all in all, it was a terrible shit show. And because of this, all this, I have a couple more stories I could tell about this, but I'm kind of running way past what I was trying to, so I'm gonna end it there. But yeah, that was about the last time I saw her, and my final, advice to her was, hey, I know, I've said this multiple times, and I know you've heard it multiple times from different people, but you seriously need to get help for yourself and realize that he's not worth it. No one alive is worth that. Like, you should not be treated this way. And this is coming from someone who has witnessed her own fair share of abusive relationships. I've seen so many. I've first-handed. You need to leave this before it kills you. And those were one of the last things I said to her before I left. Because I still cared about her. She's a human fucking being, and I care about her. And it was just heartbreaking to see this happening. So yeah, those were my final moments with her, where I was just like, outside of her treating me terribly because of her miserable life, I also couldn't bear to see her basically kill herself every day she came in, because this wasn't this was a very common occurrence, was seeing her come in the store, hurt, beat up. It was not fucking fun. It wasn't fun. It wasn't engaging. It was just really sad. And it's sad seeing somebody kill themselves because they think they're really in love, when the person you're with doesn't even love you. But anyways, yeah. So I'm sorry for this super long video, but I enjoy long videos. I like yapping. But yeah. So that is why I stopped working at an ear piercing store. Now I know, funny enough, I didn't even get into the ear piercing part of the store. But if this actually does get people, riled in here, and I start building a community, I will make a part 2 and share more stories if this goes well. But if anybody watches this, thank you for watching. And yeah, if this gets more engagement, I'll probably do more videos like this. But other than that, toodaloo.